Hi everyone, my name's Brian. I'm a Magic the Gathering player who's been playing a little bit too long. And what you see before you today is actually the culmination of a different video I had thought I had wanted to make. It turns out I didn't want to make it after. So, super quick story time. I started playing Modern at around 2014, 2015, just when Oath of Gatewatch was being printed. And during that time, right after the Eye of Ugin ban, I started playing Modern. I had just gotten back into Magic by playing with friends in my office, and we were just playing limited drafts, sealed. But I wanted to play Magic again. I had played Magic when I was younger. I started in Portal, stopped at around Onslaught, and I wanted to give it another go. So I went on to mtggoldfish.com, saw what was in the meta, didn't understand that if something was only 2% of the meta, that was actually a really good thing. Oh, how it was back then. But anyway, I chose Eldrazi Taxes, and I chose Eldrazi Taxes because I really wanted to play Legacy. I didn't want to play Modern, but really there was no Legacy games to be had around me, so I had to play the format that was being played at my local Magic the Gathering commune, which happened to be a place called Aether Cafe in Hoboken. I have no problem naming that place because that place is long gone. But believe it or not, first time I played Modern, I won. I went 3-0 and I got a little bit of store credit. Compared to when I was a kid, when I never won anything, that was amazing. It was very surprising. And that's when I learned, back in the day, Modern was a much more fair format than what I was used to, playing a lot of Type 1. Or was it Type 2? Whichever one turned into Legacy. And I was like, oh, my things aren't just going to get randomly countered. Counterspell's not even in the format. Ha ha. And I really just took my love of Modern from there. Now, what I wanted to do for you guys was play my exact deck as it was when I started playing Magic, Eldrazi Taxes, and see if it could keep up with the new Modern meta. Spoiler, no. No, it can't. So rather than make you guys slog through games that take hours. Eldrazi Taxes games are so long. They literally used to give me a headache in the store. And that's not hyperbole. That I literally would get headaches, especially against Boggles. But I still wanted to play my old cards. I still wanted to show that these Eldrazi, specifically Eldrazi Displacer, had a place in the Modern meta. And then another thing kind of came into it. You know me, I don't want to put any more money into this system than I already have. So this was all stuff I either had from doing something else or playing another deck. I'll let you know what I bought as I go through it. But what is this pile? Because this clearly isn't Eldrazi Taxes. There's no taxes. Is this just a pile of Eldrazi and the best white-black cards in Modern? Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. So what am I doing here? What's the plan? And what is this ridiculously fair brew that I plan on taking into Modern? A totally fair and balanced format. So the idea here is you might notice there's a bit of a dearth of 2-drops, and because you really hope you get Eldrazi Temple, which is like a soul land, but only for Eldrazi abilities and spells. And then you have Eldrazi Displacer, which turns into a 2-drop. You have Wasteland Strangler, which turns into a true drop, and you have Thought-Knot Seer, which turns into a true drop, assuming you draw enough Eldrazi Temples. So the rest of the deck is just, okay, let's try and support these Eldrazi, because these Eldrazi I'm playing are not good. They are objectively bad. If you're trying to play them in Modern, you're wrong. I am wrong. Don't be like me. But if we're going to try and give this deck the best chance it can, it needs some help. And that help starts with Esper Sentinel. Now, these black-white decks back in the day, they always had a problem drawing cards. Now, you could play Bob, which is Dark Confidant, but he deals you damage based on the CMC of whatever you flip over. Reality Smasher is in that deck. That's a 5-drop. Don't play Bob and Reality Smasher in the same deck. I used to do that. Don't be me. So 4 Esper Sentinels, trying to draw some extra cards. Also, just a good 1-drop. It's good against Ragavan because you can put it down and make them sweat. 4 Path to Exiles. We're playing 4 Path to Exiles as opposed to Prismatic Endings because we need to get big things kind of out of the way. Also, I don't have Prismatic Ending on Mitgo and I didn't want to buy them. Plus, it fuels our Wasteland Stranglers, which turns into kind of like a mini Dismember if you have something in exile. 2 Inquisition of Kozilek's, 3 Thoughtseize, standard spread, just trying to disrupt their hand a little bit so that we can get our big stompers out. 4 Dauthi Voidwalkers. Now, this is a new addition. Back when I played Black White Eldrazi, way back in the day, before Modern Horizons was even a thought in Mark Rosewater's head, this used to play for Relica Progenitus. And this is really taking the place of that, because it just does a better job. It hits them for 3, it's more or less unblockable, and you might see me get into a moment where I'm just fogging their creatures by tapping them down with Eldrazi Displacer. And Voidwalker can just kind of sneak through. Even if they have flyers, I can get past them, smack them around a bit. It being Graveyard Hate is also good too. Main deck Graveyard Hate is really powerful right now with Dragon Rage Channeler everywhere. Just overall, a undercosted, overperforming Modern Horizons card. Wonder where I've heard that before. Moving on to our pseudo 3-drops, hopefully 2-drops, we have 4 Eldrazi Displacers, and these are probably the most powerful Eldrazi you're not going to run into very often. This can blink another creature, bring it back into the field tapped, as many times as you have the mana for it. So that little diamond shape you're seeing is actually the devoid mana. It's colorless. You actually have to spend colorless. When we go over the mana, you'll see why I'm playing such a weird mana base, because I need so much of that kind of weird symbol if you haven't run into that. But this is very powerful. It can tap down things. It can blink our creatures and save them. It could blink our creatures, which do things when they enter the battlefield. Overall, just a very good card. 4 Lingering Souls. Again, pure value. You're playing Black-White. You can kind of see this is an old shell, but during my test games, I do test games, believe it or not, the Lingering Souls were surprising people. They block very well. There's so many of them, and they're evasive, and they can just get over and deal a bunch of damage. 3 Wasteland Strangler down from 4. I was testing with 4. I ended up cutting to 3 and putting in a Vindicate in one of their place. They're good. They're not as good without something like Flicker Wisp to really take advantage of them. So I decided to keep 3 in there because this is Black White Eldrazi. If I'm not playing Eldrazi, this deck is just slowly going to turn into the Elemental deck. Or it's going to slowly turn into Mono White Taxes, which is an Elemental deck. And I didn't want that, so I left those in there, despite my own better judgment. 1 Vindicate. Sometimes you blow up a land and really screw them. 4 Thought-Knot Seer. This is an absolute house. It can come down on 2 if you're lucky enough to get it and 2 Eldrazi Temples in your opening hand. And 4/4 for 4, when it comes into play, look at your opponent's hand, exile a card. That card does not come back, but when they kill it, they do get to draw a card. Now, you can actually get your opponents in a weird sort of lock state, where you just keep blinking Thought-Knot Seer over and over with Eldrazi Displacer, and really just not leaving their hand alone until they have nothing in it, or just a bunch of lands. And finally, our finisher, Reality Smasher. So, 5/5, Trample Haste. Pretty much you can stop there, but also if you try and target it, they do have to discard a card from their hand, so it forces a 2-for-1 if you try and get rid of it. The land package is pretty simple. 4 Caves of Koilos. Yes, I am playing a lot of damage lands, and even though there are only 6 lands that deal me damage in this game, count at home how much my lands deal me damage. Somehow, I always end up drawing Caves of Koilos and Silent Clearing more than I feel I should, but hey, I put them in the deck. This is actually really good because it's a free untapped tri-land as opposed to a dual land. So yes, it can deal me damage, but I do have some cards that specifically are looking for that little diamond-shaped mana. 1 Concealed Courtyard because I don't own 4 Marsh Flats. 4 Eldrazi Temple, best land in the deck. 2 Fetid Heath. Again, this is technically a tri-land that comes into play untapped. Now, it shouldn't be the first land I play, but assuming I have any land that produces any color of mana, because it does actually need black or white to start filtering, these will do great. 3 Godless Shrine to go get with the fetch lands or just to draw naturally. Again, they're very good. 3 Marsh Flats. That's how many I had. Would probably go for a little bit more. If you're comparing this to other decks that kind of do the same thing as this, they tend to play less lands, but I got 5 drops, so my lands are pretty high. 2 Mishra's Factory. Again, they produce colorless, and they can beat down. They can just go in and ruin your day. 1 Plains, 1 Swamp, and 2 Silent Clearing. Again, sometimes you just need to draw a card, because a lot of the times if I flip over a Reality Smasher, you'd be surprised how often that wins. That's the basic of the deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard. So the sideboard is just me going, okay, what am I going to run into, and what am I going to worry about? So 2 Deafening Silence, good against decks that are going to kind of go off. I doubt we'll run into Storm, but good against that. Really good against things like Control as well, because they can counter your first spell, and then it doesn't matter how many counter spells are in their hand. And you'll notice I am primarily creatures. Free Sanctifier and Vex, so these are playing my Graveyard Hate. I kind of tested a little bit with a Rest in Peace, but with 4 Dothy Voidwalkers, it seemed kind of unnecessary. 1 Leyline of Sanctity, 1 of Fun of. Essentially, I just want to flop this in, and if my opponent is Burn or something and I happen to get this down, or my opponent is Jund and they're trying to rip my hand apart, it would be good to get this. Also, it's very easy to cast in my deck. 2 Fatal Push, not as good as Path in my experience, but good enough to take out a few creatures, take out Ragavan, Dragon Rage Channeler, so on and so forth. Kyle's Guile, I've been very impressed with these. So this is essentially 2 for winning your opponent somehow normally. Even more Graveyard Hate. Normally I use it for its Edict effect and gaining life. 2 Vindicate, good against Tron, good against big creatures, good against things where Wasteland Strangler is just not big enough to kill it. 1 Pithing Needle. During my testing, I actually won a game against Zombie Hunt because I had Pithing Needle. Also just good against Planewalkers and really specific decks in general. And finally, 2 Chalice of the Void. I expect to play this mostly on 0 against Cascade decks, but again, during testing, I played against 8-Whack, and I played it on 0 and 1, because he was playing a weird version that involved Summoner's Pack and the red pack as well, where you get the big giant, 4/4 giant, I think. But yeah, so this is just a fun deck for me to play. I don't know if many people will have as much rose-colored glasses when it comes to the cards in this deck, but it comes from a time in Magic when I was just starting out again, and I wanted to give it a go. And like I said, I originally wanted to play Eldrazi and Taxes, and absolutely not. Maybe later when Taxes gets better, or perhaps when I get more patient, but I wasn't doing 5 rounds of Eldrazi and Taxes. So what are my expectations here? I really do hope to go 3-2. 2-3 would be fine. 1-4 would be saving myself. 5-0, you're never going to see this video. And yeah, so let's go ahead and hop in a league, see how this mix of old deck and brew does in the big old meta. When I do a lot of testing, I'm doing it in the free practice rooms, and you tend to play against people who are playing for lower stakes in that example. So I feel like we're going to be playing a lot more meta decks, and let's go ahead and see what this does against real Magic the Gathering decks, not against pack whack. All right, guys, join me, won't you? So what did we learn today in Modern? Don't play Black White Eldrazi. I legitimately thought I was gonna save myself some headache playing this instead of Eldrazi and Taxes. But yeah. No. This is unplayable. Stone cold not able to compete, and that's a shame. But yeah, we learned something today, which is maybe stick to the meta. Maybe customize those decks, because this was a brutal experience. Not only did I lose, but I got crushed. So I'm sure whatever comedy show I played you beforehand holds true. But yeah, let's hope next week I can pull something better out of my hat than that. Oh my god, I'm sorry, guys. Catch you for the next one. Later.